Meet the Rebel, self-proclaimed coolest dude in the Commonwealth. This character will bring the funk to the waist and look good while doing it. The Rebel has Strength 3, Perception 4, Endurance of 5, Charisma 3, Intelligence at 1, Agility of 7 and Luck 6. The Rebel may not be the strongest guy around, but he can still land a solid punch, so he can't afford to go any lower in the strength stat. A Perception of 4 will get us Demolition Expert once we have the bobblehead, and gives us decent VATS accuracy. Endurance is sat at 5 for this character, in order to help keep us alive. Although you shouldn't take too many hits when playing this build, you still need to be able to stay alive in a firefight. A Charisma of 3 will get us the incredibly powerful Lone Wanderer perk, and helps us pass the occasional speech check. Intelligence is the dump stat for this build, sitting at 1. The Rebel is not a smart guy, but fortunately we will have another way to get XP. Agility is our highest stat at 7. This will both help us work as a stealth-based character and a fast-paced run and gun build at the same time. Finally, Luck is at 6. This is going to allow us to use critical hits more effectively, helping to encourage and improve VATS gameplay. The essential perks for this build are Iron Fist, Commando, Armourer, Sneak and Ninja. Iron Fist and Commando are our damage dealing perks. This build uses both unarmed and automatic weapons to give a fast paced and varied playstyle. The Armourer perk is going to help this build stay alive in combat by greatly enhancing our energy and damage resistances. The Sneak and Ninja perks will make this character work well as a stealth-based character, letting you take out enemies before they notice you're there. The recommended perks are Lone Wanderer, Attack Dog, Better Criticals and Critical Banker. The Lone Wanderer perk will make this character powerful through a hefty damage boost which lets us rapidly take down foes. While we use the Attack Dog perk to help us deal with crowds of enemies and keep us alive longer. By having Dogmeat be able to keep an enemy busy, you don't have to worry about them attacking you, and the final rank of the perk reduces all damage you take by 10%. The Better Criticals and Critical Banker perks will give this build an edge in VATS, helping us deal with tough enemies by landing critical after critical on them. The role-playing perks I've included are Blacksmith, Demolition Expert, Mr. Sandman and Idiot Savant. The Blacksmith perk will let us mod out our unarmed weapon, making it more powerful and therefore more viable. Demolition Expert will give us a large damage boost by making our explosive far more powerful and accurate. It's also going to let us craft the different explosives that we will be using. The Mr. Sandman perk will give us some additional damage, but also gives the build a bit more of a rough feel to it. Sure, this guy may seem charming, but he'll slit your throat in your sleep if he has to. Lastly, the Idiot Savant perk is going to allow us to level at a fast rate. Having Intelligence at 1 means that this perk will activate fairly regularly, meaning the character will have no troubles getting to the next level. The Rebel was always a cool dude with a bad attitude. He was a part of one of the best street gangs in Boston, and spent his time walking the streets with them, looking good and making sure nobody stepped on their turf. His time on the streets made him skilled with a pair of knuckles, and despite his slim frame, he gave out knuckle sandwiches to any square that tried to mess with him. Although he was very happy with his life, he had goals to become a world-famous singer. The only problem with this is that his voice was so bad it would total your ears and make you jump in your rocket and scream. Despite being shot down every time he tried to sing, he didn't give up on his dreams, and naively believed that one day everyone would know his name. He lived out every day pretty much the same, up until the point where he was conscripted into the army. Although he didn't want to join, the rest of the gang decided that they should all go at the same time. The Rebel was tight with them, and there was no way he'd beat feet on them. Instead, they all signed up together and went through training, keeping their identities intact even when the officers tried to break them down. They eventually ended up as a squad, and were thrown into a few firefights, but always had each other's backs. Unfortunately though, war is dangerous, and people die. In a single battle, all of the rest of the Rebels' gang were wiped out from a stray plasma grenade detonating next to them. The Rebel was the furthest from it, and despite sustaining mild injuries, wasn't affected with anything long-term physically. None of his friends were as fortunate, and seeing the bodies of the people he was closest with laying still around him broke him inside. He ended up in the hospital for a while, and nobody was able to get through to him. He just spent all of his time staring blankly at the wall, not displaying any of the character that he had fought so hard to keep hold of throughout training. One day, a woman came to the hospital and offered to give him a fresh start, letting him forget all the painful memories and go back to the way that he was. He accepted the offer. He may not have wanted to forget his friends, but he couldn't live with their memories either. He was sent to a facility and had some sort of procedure performed on him. He couldn't remember anything about it afterwards though. Actually, he couldn't remember much, and found himself having plenty of gaps in his memory after that, but he was definitely happier, and went back to being his normal self for the most part. He stayed with the army for a short while longer, but one day he found that he had left, and yet couldn't remember doing so. Not wanting to think it through too hard though, he returned to Boston, and ended up living not far from where he had before. Once he was back though, he found himself having even more blackouts. It seemed that whenever he met up with someone who apparently knew him from before, he would forget the whole meeting soon after. This caused him a fair few problems for a time, but he did meet up with a sweet dolly with a classy chassis, and it wasn't long before they were circled, and he stopped worrying about the blackouts, instead living in the moment and spending his time on Cloud 9. Eventually the two cool cats end up with their own ankle biter, but suburban paradise is broken up when the nukes fall, and they have to split flat out to the vault. There are two factions for this build, the Railroad and the Atom Cats. The Railroad will be our story faction, and gives us access to Ballistic Weave, a great addition to the build. In terms of role-playing, the Rebel doesn't really understand what simps are, but knows that slavery is wrong, so is easily swayed to the Railroad's cause. When playing through their quests, try to mix up the dialogue options to make the character seem like he's not fully with what's going on, and to decrease the whole smooth secret agent vibe. You'll also want to join up with the Atom Cats. This character doesn't use power armor, but he will obviously want to be a part of the coolest group in the Commonwealth. To him, being recognised as a cool cat will be a priority, and with his funky music taste, the cats would be crazy to not let him join the gang. The companion for this build is Dogmeat. We use the Lone Wanderer and Attack Dog perks, so there's no real advantage to us using any other companion, and in terms of roleplaying, the Rebel just thinks that it's cooler to be a loner. In truth, Dogmeat is probably the only companion that can put up with his terrible singing for any length of time. The weapons this build will use are Knuckles, an automatic pipe rifle, and Spray and Pray. Knuckles will be our unarmed weapon for this build, and although not being particularly powerful, they are easy to obtain early on and don't take much to upgrade. The automatic pipe rifle is going to give us a rapid firing weapon with plenty of expendable ammo. Having a .38 weapon means we will rarely have to worry about ammo, and can just keep the trigger held down for suppressing fire. As you don't have gun nut, you will need to pick up several different pipe rifles to strip them for the best mods. There isn't a guaranteed legendary variant of the pipe rifle, but keep your eyes open for legendary drops, and hopefully you will get a good one. The powerhouse of this build is Spray and Pray. This explosive submachine gun is incredibly powerful, and comes decked out with some great mods. Despite its name being Spray and Pray, this will actually be the weapon we should use a little more conservatively, and focus on using it to take down more powerful foes, or groups of enemies, and use the auto pipe rifle as our standard weapon. You'll also want to limit your explosives to Molotovs, baseball grenades, and bottle cap mines. This gives the build more of an improvised feel that ties in with the crude weaponry. The Rebel isn't a fan of fancy tech, and likes to keep things simple for himself, so these weapons will be ideal. The Rebel will wear Zeke's jacket and jeans and a newsboy cap, both modded out with Ballistic Weave. This will give us some great resistances, boost our charisma, and even improve unarmed damage. You'll also want to throw on the Destroyer's legs to give you bonus movement speed, adding to the speedy playstyle of his character. I'd advise making these sleek to also make you fast while in sneak mode. You may also want to throw on a pair of patrolman sunglasses just to add to the coolness factor. There are two distinctive playstyles this character uses, stealth and run and gun. While being stealthy, you can lay down bottle cap mines and eliminate the toughest enemy with a powerful sneak attack. Once you've been discovered, switch over to running and gunning, dodging bullets while spraying lead at a constant rate. For role-playing, just be the coolest dude in the Commonwealth. Don't worry so much about all the in-depth quests or people's heartfelt problems. Your number one priority is looking good and being awesome. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this build, and hit the like button too while you're at it. Also, if you think you know some funky songs, then tell me in the comments. I wrote most of this script while listening to Funky Cold Medina, which really helped to shape the character. Thanks for watching the build, and if you want to see some more great builds and prove how much of a cool cat you are, then click on one of the links on screen now.